The Sustainable Voice, bringing you big successes from small places worldwide.
Welcome back to the Sustainable Voice. This is Ashish, as with me as usual, my co-host Leigh. How are you?
Good morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you are.
I'm
I'm
not.
great.
I'm not even sure where I am these
Yeah.
days. It's kind of hard to figure out, but we've had a bit of a roll here. The first two episodes of the year under the belt. Third episode now coming up, and it seems like starting to hit a stride now, which is really cool. We're starting to hit our groove.
I like it. I think so too.
We're talking about some really cool things we've talked about. We've come from Egypt and we're staying in ancient civilizations and we're heading over to Peru now. And what makes our dialogue in these episodes so cool is we're not sitting here talking about, oh, look, there's Machu Picchu, even though you have Machu Picchu behind you. You know, nothing cliche about that. you know,
There's more to this picture than meets the eye, and I'll tell you about it in a
oh,
minute.
do tell. Okay, I want to know now. I got the animal, I got the ruins, and I got you. So there's something missing here. So do tell.
The llama, my third grade geography project with Miss Manning at Alice Drive Elementary School in Sumter, South Carolina. I had to study a llama, and I had to do a whole
What?
report on llamas.
Okay. Did they
And I
actually
put
spit?
Um, I actually can't remember. I don't think they
Oh,
do. Do they?
I
You would
don't
know.
know. I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
They never spit on me. I've seen alpacas spit. I've not have a llama spit on me, nor do I think I want to. I will. I'll
No.
tell you something really cool though. We did this not in Peru, in Ecuador, but I was involved in a project that actually there's a little small town near Cotopaxi National Park, and this was a town that actually had issues where those oil drums
Mhm.
that they're all that they use become used as garbage cans in parks and everywhere else and whatnot. So these oil drums were on a little slant like this, and they were rusted out. So what's happening is the garbage was basically escaping from the bottom of the oil drum, and then it was just blowing all over this little town. And this town had llamas, like I mean, ton and ton of, I guess, llama. The plural llama is lama. So they had a ton of them there, and they they had predators coming into the town hunting these llama
Huh.
because of the garbage. So it was obviously affecting the local people because they rely on llama the way livestock, farmers might rely on sheep or whatnot. They rely on llama from everything from the fur to the wool to everything else, right? So there's that aspect of it. So we actually helped deliver these big huge dumpsters. And I remember when we came to the dumpsters, they were talking to us about how the llama are now converging around the flower beds. So it's almost like they adapted to the predators that were coming in. The llama were adapting to where they graze and whatnot based on the threats that are facing them. I was amazed because, frankly, I didn't think they were smart enough to do that, but I guess I was wrong. They
That's
really are.
incredible.
Yeah, it was really
Yeah.
cool. So yeah, so nothing cliche about that picture behind you. The
Well, I knew Machu Picchu would trigger you, so I figured that would be a good jumping off point for some conversation topics. So
literally and figuratively.
yeah, right.
So that's part of what we're talking about today is Peru as a country. So Peru, it's no secret Peru's been through a lot, not just in the last 23 years, 22 years, where they've had 11 presidents in 22 years. Not just that, but just in the last 2 years where you've had upheaval, impeachment, and now just as of the taping of this, there were protests up at Machu Picchu because of the privatization of the tickets. All that's been resolved. All that's been resolved. But it seems like this country goes to ultimatums, and one side or the other. It's clear that they want tourism. It's clear the country wants tourism. I've actually seen this firsthand. I was in Peru last March celebrating my son's birthday. Took him paragliding, by the way, for his 16th birthday. Since we know that there's nobody here who's going to get me in trouble in this podcast, I'll tell you, there is nothing more glorifying than taking your 16-year-old son the day he turns 16, not telling him what we're doing, and then going up to the side of a mountain and basically jumping off with a parachute, going paragliding. For all those moments he talked back to me, I gotta tell you, it was pretty liberating just to jump off that mountain with him. The
Was your
cool
wife
thing,
aware that you were doing that with him?
no,
Sorry.
not at all. No,
Yeah.
no. She didn't come. I mean, she
Yeah.
knew she knew I was doing something crazy with him. She just, I think when I told her, she just went, "Oh, that's pretty much it." It was all that. So, I mean, she knew. So what was really cool is I had told him that we're doing something for your birthday. So it was his birthday, the day of the birthday. We had gone up this mountain, and we're driving up, and then at about I think 10 o'clock in the morning, about probably 20 minutes away from the peak, I told him, look, we're going to be paragliding today. He's like, well, what's that? I go, well, I'm going to be putting a parachute on, you're going to be jumping off the side. And you should have seen the smile on his face. He's like, this is the coolest birthday ever, this beats everything, this that, 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 that. It was just what was
Wow.
rattling in his mind was that every birthday party he's been to that he thought was cool, that bar had just been reset. And I remember I was like, yeah, it's going to give me some dad points for a while, some good dad brownie points for a long time. So we
Yeah.
jumped off this cliff. We landed, and here's the best part. Before we jumped off, his face got very stone like, very stoic, very serious. So I think the fear was starting to
Mm.
enter. So I
Mhm.
went to him and I said, "Listen, just relax. It'll be okay. Look, I trust these guys. I've been with them before as well. I've done this before. You'll be all right. It's okay to be scared and whatnot." And typical teenager, I'm not scared. I'm not scared. So I look at him. I go, "Hey, you want to tell your face that?" Just kind of let him know
I
that.
love
So
it.
he jumped
Oh.
off, and as he did, we landed. And he goes, "How come you jump with me?" I said, What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, you done this before, right?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "So you keep doing it?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do it in different places." He goes, "Why'd you do it with me?" I said, "To remind you." He said, "Of what?" I said, "Your dad's still the man."
Oh, wow.
But see, that in itself, that story in itself is what Peru represents, right? It's beyond the history, beyond the ruins. There is a story for everybody. I can't count how many people have gone to Peru and either in Rainbow Mountains or Machu Picchu or in the Circuit Valley, but there's something where they get emotional at one point because something speaks to them. Either it is a lost relative or friend, or there's something that, like what you talked about, your elementary school teacher. There's something that just triggers them,
Mhm.
that that this is I've longed to come here. I've seen there's only two places in the world I've seen this, honestly, is in Egypt and in Peru. I've not seen anywhere else, which is surprising. You would think that somebody goes on safari that they would get emotional looking at animals, and to a certain degree, sure. But the type of emotion that gets evoked from being in Peru and Egypt, and I've not seen that anywhere else. And I've seen this just with people traveling with me. It evokes this emotion where it's almost like they're taken back in time. And I asked somebody, I said, what was it about this? And this was just in October when I was there with some people. And they said, we've read about this for the longest time. We have dreamt about this. And one person said, I have dreamt of, and she didn't say Machu Picchu. She said, I have dreamt these salt mines, the Marasi Morai, these salt
Mhm.
mines that the Incans used to store food. She goes, I have dreamt about seeing this since I was 7 years old. My father worked in a museum or a library or something, or mother or something like that, and it was talking about how they would come home and talk about this. And these kids are doing book reports on the Incan civilization, and the salt mines came up because apparently it was used by the Mayans as well. It was used by other civilizations as well. And so these salt mines, came up, and she was talking about some of these round rings that you could see from these terraces, and you see from top down view. And she goes, and I'm here, and I'm looking at them, and
Mhm.
I'm in. She goes, and she was, I think, in her like late 40s, and she said, I was 6 years old when I thought about this. And that in itself represents how a country can, I guess, heal itself, right?
Mhm.
In terms of, I mean, if in
Yeah.
all your travels, whether it was the Coast Guard or as an expedition captain, did you, as part of the crew rather, did you ever experience that on any of your boats or anything where somebody just had an emotion because a lifelong dream was fulfilled?
Oh, for sure. For sure. Especially, in that whole small ship cruising
Yeah,
category, people would cry when they would leave.
yeah,
But yes, it was the destination, but it was that human connection,
right.
breaking through and getting deep. We talked about it last time. I think that more so, but I think in Peru, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we talk about there's so many parallels between Peru and Egypt, right? I
Yeah.
mean, in terms of
Well, northern
dating,
Peru, yeah,
carbon
northern
dating
Peru.
and, you know,
Yeah, I mean, the empires from the Roman Empire
mm,
that conquered Egypt to the Chacha Empire that was in Peru, the correlations of time frame that they were around, how they mummified their dead. I mean, it's too much to be a coincidence.
yeah. So it
And
makes me think like, are people being drawn in like to a deep ancestral type?
Right.
spiritual experience in Peru as they are in Egypt, you know.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think that's exactly it. It's this spiritual connection or ancestral connection where
Mhm.
you start seeing similarities to whether you're Catholic, Christian, Hindu, Muslim, whatever.
Mhm.
You start seeing similarities, and it's funny when you step back and look at some of the conflicts we deal with around the world. How many of them are based on faith or religious differences,
Don't you
right?
think all of them are, right?
Almost all of them. And here we
Mhm.
are in a country that literally is the Kevin Bacon of countries, a 6 degrees of separation from every religion in the world. And every it really is. I call it the Kevin Bacon of
Yeah.
the world because it really is. All is missing
Mhm.
is somebody in an Andean explorer doing a footloose dance is the only thing is missing. Otherwise, everything else is there. Uh, but it is like, I mean, there's connections to everything. I'll give you an example of what I mean, right? We talked about the connection to the Romans. So this last visit, I actually had lunch at this estancia outside in the Sacred Valley, and the owner of the estancia is there's this huge movement of Palestinians that are in Peru. So and my mom's from Sudan, so
Mm.
I'm getting all these
Mhm.
Lebanese and Lebanese food and Middle Eastern food and whatnot and the Mediterranean food, and I'm like, ooh, this is great, and it's blended with Peruvian food, so I'm seeing this fusion. I'm just saying, ooh, this is amazing. I'm not complaining about this one bit.
Mhm.
But I saw this, and then one of the things I experienced was this huge Japanese heritage because the Japanese have been in Peru since 1800. So you've got links to ancient civilizations. You got links to basically the dawn of civilization, and then you've got links to the Roman Catholic. So it's not just the civilizations that came first; it's the ones that conquered them that Peru has links to.
Mhm.
And I think that's the part the story doesn't get told as well because a lot of people focus on what's behind you, right? Let's go
Yeah.
see the Incan
Right?
Empire and Machu Picchu. But when you take a step back, there's so much there. I did this really cool tour in Lima, where it's basically a Japanese experience tour where you literally you're going out with a heritage guide and actually going and eating at these just local places, right? And God, I mean, I don't eat seafood or meat or anything like that,
Mhm.
but I remember one of the dishes was a ceviche sushi,
Oh, you
and
had
and
me at ceviche. Whoa, that
I it was
yeah.
incredible. It was incredible.
Wow.
You've had ceviche, right?
I love it. It's probably my all-time favorite to eat anywhere I go. It's the one thing, if
Now,
I can get a hold of it, I wanna eat it.
all right. Well, I mean, maybe we need to go back to Peru because this was ceviche and sushi combined. Like I,
Mm.
I don't eat seafood and meat, but I'm looking at that going, I don't know, I might just break. Uh, it,
Oh, it
but
sounds
but you
good.
start learning about the heritage of
Mhm.
the Japanese history in Peru through food. And I gotta tell you,
Amazing.
the place that we went to, my wife, my kids, and I we went for dinner before we flew home to the Japanese restaurant. This food was incredible. It's better than any restaurant I have eaten in the U.S. and not just U.S.
Wow.
Even I would say it rivals some of the food that I've had in Japan. And I don't mean that to sound stereotypical, but the
Mhm.
fact just it's because it's a blend, right? Sushi rolls are sushi rolls, but the fact that it's a blend is something that's really different. There's something special to it, and I think
Yeah.
that's what gets lost. But I'll tell
Wow.
you, this is the part of the story that's not told well. Not enough people know about it. And when you think about Peru, look at their economy overall. It doesn't function, right? There's problems everywhere. Tourism is
Mm.
pretty much the only part that functions properly.
Is
And
does it is it does it function because the government supports it or in spite of the government?
so that's an interesting question. It depends on where you are in the country.
Mhm. Mm.
So the government does support it. I don't know that they support it effectively enough. For example, when I went in March, and then again this last year, this past October, a few months ago, up at Machu Picchu and some of the places, you have people roaming around from the tourism ministry taking surveys. Here's an iPad or here's a tablet. Please, can you fill in this survey? The questions that they're asking they're asking, how is your accommodation? How is the guide? How is this? Okay, they're asking normal questions that have A and B
Mhm.
answers, right? Asking about basically, net promoter scores and whatnot, and getting a baseline on quality, right? So if there's an issue there, but they're not asking the right questions. The guide was never the issue. The hotel was never the issue. The sites were never the issue. The people were never the issue. And there's questions like, were the people rude to you or nice to you? I mean, I've had people flip me off
Really?
in other parts of the world because
Eh,
they've just seen too many tourists, and I've had people who hug me. I mean, that
yeah.
that has nothing to do with it. You're talking about trying to affect people's free will by saying, were they nice to you, right? If
Mhm.
I do something, to upset them, they shouldn't be nice to me.
Yeah.
But it was that they didn't ask the questions they should have been asking. Why are you in Peru?
Mm.
Would you come back to Peru? What's stopping you, or is there anything stopping you from telling your friends to come to Peru? Those were the questions that should have been asked, and I would have given them detailed answers. The questions they asked, pardon my French, a monkey could have answered them. I mean, I could have given this
Yeah.
iPad to a child and said, "Here, fill this out."
Mhm.
In fact, I think
Yeah.
at one point I did. I said,
Oh
"Here, you
gosh.
fill it out." There's the disconnect. So to your question, yes, the government does support tourism. I don't know that they support it in the right way and in all regions equally.
Mm.
Now, there is progress being made on that front, right? So I was up in the northern part of Peru, and there's this airstrip it's Chachapoyas is the airstrip. There's only a couple flights a week that go here, they haven't been able to land the wide body jets here, and so they thought the runway was too short. Well, they apparently sent a delegation down to Cuenca in Ecuador to look at this runway. There is even shorter, and
Mhm.
apparently wide body jets are landing there to learn how they could turn their small airport into a hub where they can create a corridor between Ecuador and Peru. And that would be a game changer.
Yeah.
That's the sort of stuff that happened. I'll tell you that last day, and then here's, I guess the other part of this. On that last day, we were supposed to have a meeting with the tourism minister. I was the minister, the vice minister that was supposed to come there. I was appalled. I was honestly I was beside myself. I could not believe this. This is October of 2023, as we're dating this recording, this episode. This was October 2023 that I was in Peru, and obviously Peru was rebounding, but it still hadn't hit full tilt. But it was because it was just you're not less than 12 months removed from the protests were happening in January. 2 days before we were supposed to meet the minister, the vice minister, she says, "I have to be in Spain." Now,
Mm.
I understand last minute trips, but if you are in charge of tourism and you have a choice between a business trip in Spain or visiting with a bunch of travel professionals who work at the highest level of the profession, I'm not even talking about me, I'm talking about the people who are with me,
Mhm.
and you choose Spain,
Mm.
there's a problem there.
Yeah.
Then the minister of tourism, so her boss, can my wife come too? Sure, no problem. Okay, well, I don't know if I want to come. It was a social event for him. And,
Oh.
I'm used to this, right? I mean, in Africa, we deal with this all the time in African countries. So yeah, I'm used to this. But it shocked me that a government that says that they are all for tourism in Peru couldn't even swing 1 hour.
Wow. Well, and
That's
you
the
must
problem.
have you must have been someone your host must have been embarrassed. Whoever someone in Peru must have who are the people that are trying to get this
The
fixed with
local
on the ground?
delegations, yes, the
Yeah.
local ministers, the
Mm.
head, the assistants, the people who work in the specific regions, right? They're not at
Mhm.
the main government level, but the regions, they were embarrassed.
Sure.
They had such high hopes for the vice minister, and they're like, "Oh, here we go again. It's the same thing.
Oh.
Here we go again." So to that degree, there's the first problem, and this is how we talk about how you can fix an economy, and we've seen it happen, right? Take a look at Sri Lanka, take a look at Rwanda, take a look at Uganda, take a look at Colombia. These are examples of how tourism done right can fix an entire economy, right? In
Mhm.
terms of what it
Yeah.
does. So this was something that really wasn't handled well. Now, you look at those delegation that went down to Cuenca, look at the airport. That's what should be happening. I admire people like that because they're
Mhm.
doing that. What they didn't uncover is what I found. So I was in the Sacred Valley, and I was talking to a couple of us were talking to this vegetable the vendor, right? She was coming around, and she was selling fresh vegetables in a like a mobile market basically, and we talked to her about tourism, and she said, "I don't care about tourism." I said, "Okay." I said, "Why not?" And we were talking in Spanish. She said, "Well, tourism doesn't impact me." And then all of a sudden we said, "Well,
Mm.
you're walking through a hotel offering vegetables. Look at who's buying your vegetables.
Yeah.
Look at who's actually, what happens if these people can't buy vegetables from you?" It was like a light bulb went off in her head. She had
Oh,
never thought of this. And it floored me that a
right.
country that is so dialed in terms of the importance of tourism missed this major step, the the connection, direct and indirect, that tourism has with every single person in that country. And Peru has a
Hmm.
very unique dynamic to it, right? That 90 when you look at Cusco region, which is where Machu Picchu is, Cusco, Sacred Valley, 97% of that economy is tourism dependent locally there. That's why when those protests occurred, they worked to squash them quickly because they knew that this was going to impact them long term.
Hmm. Yeah.
When you look at the other parts, not as dependent. Like when we went up to northern Peru, not as dependent. They more on mining, but tourism is starting to become part of a discussion, right?
Hmm.
There are places, for example, in Colombia that 15 years ago, 10 years ago, couldn't even be accessed, and now tourism is a major driver for them. And it's shifted what they do, how they are in a positive way, right? And I
Right.
know some people think of tourism, think, okay, well, this is going to be crowds and bus tours. No, we're talking about sustainable tourism. We're talking about tourism done right and how it's supporting communities. Uh, but that disconnect, there's the problem. There's the problem. I've never experienced that anywhere else in the world. There's the problem. And I had the vice
Uh,
minister, the minister showed up. I would have shared that with them, showed the people with me. But
yeah.
I hope Ibiza was more fun than that.
So, I mean, before her light bulb moment, and she's saying that, she's not really affected by tour. But
No,
I wonder, does that mean that is she resentful of tourism, or is she, just sort
no,
of indifferent to it?
no, that's a really good question. There are some countries where, of course, they are. Indifference, the right word, not resentful at all. Very, very indifferent to it. And here's what I mean. In some parts of Peru, when those protests were happening, they were being paid to protest, right? So if you are somebody who's a vegetable farmer who has modest means, and you're being paid money to go and hold a sign and to protest, not knowing exactly what you're protesting for, you know,
Hmm.
she did it, and she even said is that she goes, "Well, I'm protesting against against what's happening." I said, "Well, why?" And she said, "Well, because I mean, I protested because it's what did she say to me? She said it helps my means." So I
Mm,
stopped, and a lot of everybody else glossed over. I stopped and I go, "What do you mean by that? It helps your means." Everybody else assumed that to mean that it's going to make her life better, and I wasn't
yeah.
convinced she was thinking that. So I asked her, "What do you mean?" And then what came out of her mouth was what just absolutely identified the problem. She said, "I get paid to protest. I make as much money protesting as I do selling vegetables. So it doesn't bother me. I'll go protest. I mean, at the end of the day, whatever happens, the protest happens. It doesn't impact me one or the other. So since it doesn't impact me and I'm going to get paid for it, I might as well do it." Wow.
Wow.
There you go.
Hmm.
Once I told her, well, if the protests go on indefinitely and tourism stops, nobody's who's going to be here to buy your vegetables where you're walking. You're in a hotel right now. This hotel would close down. People would come here. The guides would be out of work. You wouldn't be able to sell your vegetables. And she literally stopped and goes, "I know, but how?" I had to explain it to her. She goes,
Yeah.
I don't, I didn't, I never thought of that. I didn't think that." And it was incredible that
Hmm.
I would expect that to hear that, because I did have that kind of a conversation in 2006 in Colombia. I had that conversation in the early days in Uganda. I had the conversation in the early days, when destinations were first starting up in tourism. I never had that conversation in a destination like Peru, where we, I just know that tourism in the U.S. We as Americans have been visiting Peru for well over 20 years, and all of a sudden it's something that's there. So I thought it was there,
Yeah.
but that's how you
So
fix the economy.
do do Peruvians themselves, if they look at what their national gems treasures
Yeah.
are in terms of tourism, I mean, do even they just think about Machu Picchu, or are there people locally that realize we've got all this other, you know what I mean? Like, because if you
Yeah,
ask
yeah,
an
yeah.
American, they're going to say, well, you Statue of Liberty, or they might say, even we don't in America think about all the fabulous places that
Right.
you could go and visit. I just wondered about Peru.
Yeah, it's interesting. So back in 2022, I was 2021 or 2022, one, I forget which one. I was up in an area called Iescas. Iescas Peninsula is, I mean, I call it the end of the earth, right? I mean, you
Mm.
have to basically drive along the beach in a 4x4. I feel like David Hasselhoff from Baywatch driving, I had my shirt on though, but basically driving out here and whatnot. And it was just, looking in the water binoculars and, do I talk to my watch and pretend kids behind me, or I don't know what it is, right? All
That's
of a
funny.
sudden, but it's there. And this place is a preserve, a private reserve.
Mm.
It's trying to become a national park, and it was amazing. This is 900 miles on the coast of the Galapagos Islands. So some of the animals, like the Humboldt penguins, the blue-footed boobies, the sea lions, they actually migrate here.
Hmm.
And you see them from here as well, which a lot of people don't know. It's one of the best places to go kite surfing. If you're a kite surfer, you know about this place. If you are somebody who just comes to Peru, you will never have heard about this place. Even if you are from Peru, you'll never have heard of
Yeah,
this
that's what I
place.
wonder. Okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
when you talk to the people there, and this is what happens really cool, is we're driving through the sandy areas, and we come across this brick remains, and we smell sulfur. So we start asking the locals what this place is. Turns out it was actually a bunker that built bombs for the Spanish and the French during World War II, and the sulfur smell is still there. It's not a museum, it's not a tourist spot, it's just there. Then you drive along
Wow.
this beach, and you get to this house that's basically sitting on the beach, and these amazing views of just what's around you and everything else. And it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible in that you the people who are there are so proud of the transformations occurred. The fishermen are involved in tourism. They're not leaving their junk all over the beach anymore. The people who work there are actually so happy to see visitors. One person in particular, there's a husband and wife that ran the house we were staying at. It was a 4-bedroom hotel. It's nothing fancy,
Hmm.
but it's the only hotel for 70,000 acres. And
Wow.
she knew I was Indian. She made me a mushroom curry, did her best to do it,
Oh,
and it was
nice.
incredible. and,
Wow.
and she just took it upon herself. She goes, I tried this. I wanted to see what you think of it. And it was just nothing that she needed to do, but she had
Hmm.
used the ingredients she had. She looked it up all by herself. It was that sense of pride. So if
Hmm.
you're there, the people who are locally there, they want tourism. The people up at Chachapoyas, up at where this is where the fifth highest freestanding waterfall is.
Hmm.
This is where those mummies that you see in the museum that link to Rome, where they come from. The people up there are also so proud, but they're also like, resentful, not of tourism, but saying, why do the Incas get all the attention? Why does Machu Picchu get all the
Why
attention?
do the Incas get all the
Yeah,
attention?
exactly. I was here first. Jan was Marsha.
Sorry, didn't mean to
I
interrupt
mean,
your flow, but
it
yeah.
is totally like the Brady Bunch. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
it is totally like the Brady Bunch. You just need Alice to break it up. I mean, that's essentially it. But when you talk to the people there, like up at Gokta, the curator at this museum at Chachapoyas, which is the in Lema Bamba, the museum where the mummies are. The curator is the one who found some of these mummies. She's talking about how they found these mummies near the border, and where they were, where they came from, the similarities, what they saw. It was, again, mind blowing what they saw and what she discovered, and she's transporting them back. And then it's amazing. You hear a curator talk about this and say, look at all the artifacts we have here. This is 1,000 years before Machu Picchu. This is what it looks like. These mummies, these are that, these this. She's taking us around. She shows us the actual mummies, that are in storage, and you see these
Hmm.
mummies and the preservation, and it looks just like the catacombs that they had in Rome. It looks just like it. And then she ends the conversation by saying, and we hope to get more tourism because we don't know if we are going to have the funding to stay open.
Wow.
I mean, that's the disconnect. So if
Hmm.
anybody from Peru is listening, and if anybody who works for the tourism board, please tell your vice minister that you can go to Spain anytime, but you missed a huge opportunity. And if it
Hmm.
sounds like I have a grain of say that I have an axe to grind, I do. because you missed a meeting with some of the highest professionals that were traveling with me that could have given you sound advice that have, I counted out the amount of experience combined with the people traveling with me. There was over 500 years experience with the people traveling with me in tourism, just combined with all of that. And these were not people that are old. I'm talking about the group that was with me. There was almost 500 years of experience collaboratively. That was experience that could have been heard. And instead, she told me 2 days ago, well, we have to go to Spain. Even her assistant was apologizing, and if her assistant's listening to this, I'm not going to apologize for being upset about this, because you missed a huge opportunity. And then the minister of tourism, the fact that, well, I would have loved to have met his wife. I think it would have been great. I would have loved to meet them. I would have loved to show them what we were doing, but he wasn't there to have a conversation. He was there to be seen. And that, so Peru, that's how you fix it first. Put people in place that actually believe what you believe, that tourism actually is a power for good. Secondly, look at that disconnect. There are a million more of those vendors, those produce vendors that I met, that don't understand how tourism connects to them directly or indirectly. Fix that. Have conversations with that. If you want to fix that, see step 1. That's how you fix step 2, right? Go back to step 1. And then once you do that, then start infrastructure building and everything else, and what that goes in there. Tourism in Peru is a lifeblood for their economy in certain regions. We're not saying that we should open the floodgates. In fact, one of the things that Machu Picchu did was actually increasing the number of visitors. I don't agree with that. Keep the numbers low, but make it more meaningful. Make it something that actually can stand for, tourism done right can be a power for good. And you've got people there, like that curator in that museum, who is a wealth of knowledge. It's like meeting a modern day Indiana Jones. She actually is the one who discovered these mummies and she found them. Putting her front and center is huge. The women's cooperatives, for example, all these weavers in the Sacred Valley who have made something for themselves as micro entrepreneurs through weaving, embrace them, bring them forward. All these other ruins that you've got beyond Machu Picchu. We're not saying ignore Machu Picchu. Make the connection better. Make it so people can actually access other parts of Peru without having to touch Lima 5 times on a trip. This was the journey South Africa went through. They used to have to touch Johannesburg 3-4 times to get anywhere. Now you can connect anywhere easily, and the tourism there has flourished. So again, that's step 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. See step 1 to fix all those other steps.
Yeah.
Right.
Next time we're going to talk about that, right? Next time is the path after protest.
Yep. That's it. So, and this is where it's setting up from there. So if the ministers are listening, they probably shouldn't listen to the next episode.
I'm excited to see what the next episode's going to bring, and I won't be in Machu Picchu. I promise you next time.
No, we got to get you out. We're going to get you out to
I'll break out
somewhere else.
I'll be somewhere else. I promise.
There you go.
I just had to. People say that you always remember your 3rd grade teacher the most. Who was your 3rd grade teacher?
My 3rd grade teacher, I had just moved to the US from Kenya. So my most memorable, actually, honestly, wasn't 3rd grade. My most memorable was sixth grade, Mr. Greenberg.
Mr. Greenberg.
He had me write my first book report on Norway. And that book report served as a basis for my senior college thesis on global healthcare reform.
See, we both travel, other countries, geography. It gets in us in a young age. Anyway, I didn't mean to derail.
No, it's all right.
So I know we need to wrap it up.
Well, I'll leave you with this, since we made the David Hasselhoff comment. When I was in 3rd grade and I walked into class for the first time, and I was not even a year in the United States from Kenya. I was a huge Knight Rider fan because that's what we got in Kenya. I identified myself as Michael Knight, my 3rd grade teacher. I just want to make sure I threw that out there. Just saying. Saying.
That's the way to end a podcast.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to have a great one next time. So until next time, Leigh, it's going to be great. And like I said, we're going to delve into the path after protest. And anybody who is involved with the ministers, you probably shouldn't tune in for that one.
Well, thanks, Ashish. This has been fun.
Absolutely. Take care. Bye now.
Thank you for listening to The Sustainable Voice. If you have a success story of your own, please reach out and share it with us. We'd love to hear from you. See you next time.